Ever wondered why it's so easy to spend hours gaming or scrolling through social media, but so challenging to stay focused on work or study for the same amount of time? The answer lies in a little chemical messenger in your brain called dopamine. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter, a substance that helps transmit signals in the brain. It plays a crucial role in how we experience pleasure and reward. These pleasurable experiences can range from enjoying a piece of chocolate to winning a game to achieving a long-term goal. Each of these experiences triggers the release of dopamine in our brains, creating a feeling of satisfaction and accomplishment. When we engage in activities like gaming or social media scrolling, we're often rewarded with instant gratification. A quick win in a video game, a flurry of likes on an Instagram post. These rewards trigger a rush of dopamine, and it's this rush that makes these activities so addictive. Our brains are wired to seek out and repeat behaviors that trigger dopamine release. This is because, from an evolutionary standpoint, behaviors that release dopamine are often associated with survival, such as eating and reproducing. The problem arises when the brain starts associating dopamine release with behaviors that are not necessarily beneficial in the long run, like excessive gaming or social media use. The brain's reward system doesn't distinguish between a survival-critical reward like food and a non-essential reward like a video game victory. It simply responds to the dopamine. This is why you can find yourself stuck in a loop, endlessly scrolling through social media or playing video games for hours, even when you know there are more productive things you could be doing. So, you see, it's not entirely your fault that you find these activities irresistible. It's your brain reacting to the dopamine rush. But don't worry, understanding this mechanism is the first step towards gaining control over it. In the upcoming scenes, we'll delve into the downside of too much dopamine, the concept of a dopamine detox, and strategies for increasing dopamine levels in a healthy way to help you stay focused and motivated on the tasks that truly matter. But, as you might have guessed, there is a downside to this dopamine rush. When we frequently engage with activities that release dopamine, like playing video games or scrolling through social media, our brain starts to crave more of this pleasurable neurotransmitter. You see, our brains are essentially pattern recognition machines. They're always looking for ways to predict what will happen next. So, when we constantly expose them to dopamine-releasing activities, they start to expect and even demand these dopamine hits. What we're doing is training our brains to be reliant on high levels of dopamine, creating a sort of addiction. This dopamine addiction can start to impact our ability to derive pleasure from less stimulating activities. Imagine trying to read a dense academic article after spending hours on a high-speed, high-stakes video game. The contrast in dopamine levels can make the reading task seem incredibly dull and unappealing. And this is where the real problem lies. When we're constantly chasing these dopamine highs, we can find it harder to engage with activities that are important but less immediately rewarding. Things like studying, exercising, or even working on a project can feel like a chore because they don't give us the same quick, intense dopamine hit as our favorite video game or social media site. It's like having a diet consisting solely of super sweet desserts. Over time, you'll find it harder to appreciate the subtle flavors in a well-cooked meal because your palate has been overexposed to sweetness. In the same way, a brain that's always bathing in dopamine finds it hard to appreciate the more subtle rewards of less stimulating activities. This can lead to procrastination, lack of motivation, or even a general dissatisfaction with life. So, what's the solution? Should we avoid all pleasurable activities to prevent dopamine overload? Not quite. Pleasure isn't the enemy here. The problem arises when we let our brains become so accustomed to these quick and easy dopamine hits that we struggle to find pleasure in the more challenging, but ultimately more rewarding activities. This is where the concept of a dopamine detox comes in. So, what is a dopamine detox and how can it help you? You may wonder. Well, let's dive into that. A dopamine detox, also known as dopamine fasting, is a method designed to reset your brain. It's a way to regain control over your mind and derive pleasure from activities that aren't just about immediate gratification. So how does it work? Well, it's all about taking a break from those high dopamine activities. You know, the ones that give you a quick pleasure hit, but don't really contribute much to your long-term growth or happiness. These might include things like mindless scrolling on social media, binge-watching TV shows, or indulging in junk food. The idea is to abstain from these high dopamine activities for a set period of time. This could be for a day, a week, or even longer, depending on your personal needs and circumstances. During this period, you focus on tasks that require more effort and provide more long-term rewards, like studying, working on a project, or exercising. The purpose of a dopamine detox is to rewire your brain to find pleasure and satisfaction in activities that contribute to your growth and well-being. It's about breaking the cycle of instant gratification and teaching your brain to appreciate the reward that comes from effort and discipline. As you go through this detox, your brain starts to readjust. You'll find that activities you once found boring or difficult, like studying or working out, become more enjoyable. You start to derive satisfaction from the process of working towards your goals, not just the end result. In essence, a dopamine detox is about changing your relationship with pleasure and reward. It's about shifting your focus from short-term pleasure to long-term satisfaction. It's about learning to enjoy the journey, not just the destination. But remember, a dopamine detox isn't about completely cutting out all pleasurable activities. It's about balance. It's about learning to control your dopamine, not letting it control you. Essentially, it's about teaching your brain to love doing hard things. So, are you ready to take control and start your dopamine detox? Now that you understand the concept, how can you successfully carry out a dopamine detox? Well, let's delve into that. Firstly, setting clear and achievable goals is crucial. This isn't about eradicating all dopamine-inducing activities from your life. Rather, it's about rebalancing. Start with small changes, like reducing your social media scrolling by 15 minutes each day, or swapping out one TV episode for a chapter of a book. Secondly, gradually reduce exposure to dopamine-releasing activities. Let's say you're a video game enthusiast. Instead of going cold turkey, you might limit your gaming to a certain amount of time each day, progressively reducing it over time. The key here is moderation. Thirdly, replace those activities with healthier alternatives. Dopamine isn't the enemy. The problem arises when too much of it comes from unproductive sources. So instead of spending hours on social media, you might choose to engage in physical exercise, read a book, or even try meditation. Each of these activities can also stimulate dopamine, but in a more balanced and sustainable way. It's also important to foster a positive mindset. This isn't about punishment or deprivation, it's about empowerment and control. Remember, you're not denying yourself pleasure. You're simply choosing where that pleasure comes from. Lastly, don't forget to celebrate your progress. Each step you take towards a healthier dopamine balance is a victory. Treat yourself to something you enjoy, maybe a walk in the park, a special meal, or even just a moment to relax and breathe. This journey isn't always easy, and there will be moments of struggle. But remember, change is a process, not an event. It takes time and consistency, but the payoff can be immense. You'll likely find that tasks which once seemed daunting become more manageable, and activities that once felt like chores become more enjoyable. Remember, the goal here is not to eliminate dopamine, but to rebalance its levels in your brain. By doing so, you can trick your brain into liking hard things, leading to a more productive and fulfilling life. So, how can you increase your dopamine levels in a healthy way while also building your willpower? Let's delve into some strategies that will help you do just that. Firstly, regular exercise is a fantastic way to boost dopamine naturally. When you exercise, your brain releases chemicals like endorphins, serotonin, and yes, dopamine. These not only make you feel happier, but also help you concentrate better, thus making hard tasks seem more manageable. Next, a balanced diet is essential. Foods rich in tyrosine, the building block of dopamine, can help increase its production. These include lean proteins, fruits and vegetables, and whole grains. Remember, what you fuel your body with directly affects your brain function. Now, let's talk about sleep. Quality sleep is a key ingredient in dopamine production. When your sleep is compromised, so is your brain's ability to effectively use dopamine. Striving for 7 to 8 hours of sleep per night can significantly improve your brain's health and dopamine levels. Another powerful tool for building willpower and increasing dopamine is meditation. Studies have shown that regular mindfulness practice can change the brain's structure, increasing areas linked to self-control and attention. It also helps lower stress, which is essential as chronic stress can deplete dopamine levels. Now, you might be wondering, how does willpower fit into all this? Well, willpower is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. By resisting the urge to indulge in immediate dopamine-releasing activities, you're exercising your willpower. This is where the real challenge lies. But remember, every time you resist that urge, you're getting stronger. To sum it up, it's all about balance. Balancing dopamine-boosting activities with those that build your willpower, and resisting the urge to take the easy route of immediate pleasure. It's about making a conscious effort to engage in activities that are challenging yet rewarding, and finding satisfaction in the journey rather than just the destination. With these strategies, not only can you trick your brain into loving hard things, but you can also build a more disciplined and rewarding lifestyle.